Hello and welcome again to Tuesday Chats. We're delighted that you're tuning in, and we have this week we're following on from our World Mission Sunday service, and we're delighted to have some of the World Mission partners with the Methodist Church in Ireland that are serving elsewhere, Barry and Gillian Sloan. So welcome, Barry and Gillian. Good to see you.
Hey.
Thanks, Stephen. Good to be with you all this morning.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have said they're in Germany, and one of my favourite countries, I have to say. And
Hey.
I have a godson in Germany, and I am watching him on screen, the calls that I have with his family, him growing so much, 8 coming 9, and just I like to see him every year. So now it's going to be at least 2 years before I'll have seen him since last time. So, but anyway, great to be to have you sharing with us, Barry and Gillian. Maybe before we get into your work in Germany, do you want to tell us something about where you're from and some of each of your background?
Well, we've actually got a very similar background because we grew up in the same place in Green Island in Carrickfergus, County Antrim. And we both were in school together in the same class from we were 4 years old until we were 11.
Really?
So our families knew each other pretty well as well. Yeah.
We went to the same primary school, went to different grammar schools, and then we met up again in church. Jill was always involved in church. I came to faith as a young man, and we joined up again in the youth fellowship.
Great.
And then God led us into ministry in Brookborough, in Fermanagh, Lisnaskea. Did 3 years there on probation, and then we both felt a call to overseas work, and we went to talk to the overseas mission panel, and long story short, they sent us to Germany. We were always interested in mission in Europe, not necessarily the traditional mission fields like Africa or Asia.
I think that possibly had something to do with Barry's phobia for spiders and all kinds of insects.
Yeah, ruled out all those hot countries.
No, I think we always had an interest in particularly Eastern Europe, and strangely enough, we had an interest in Germany, and Barry had been learning the German language just as a hobby, and and here we are.
Great. Will I remember you when you were in Brookborough in Fermanagh? I was still at home on my home, well, Enniskillen Circuit, Florence Court,
we loved our time there.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So you also you have a son and daughters as well. I mean, I know your son, but
when we came to Germany, the children were 3 and 5, so they were quite small. Learned the German language, I think, within about 4 weeks. And Barry and I had to sit there studying, learning our vocabulary and grammar and everything. But we managed to do it because Barry was moving into a circuit that was totally German. There was no English speaking.
German language ministry. So pressure was on.
Yeah, so the language was important. But so the kids really grew up here.
Yeah.
Had all of their schooling here, but Germany's not that far away from Ireland. We had a lot of contact with families. They came to visit us. We were at home. Yeah. So really, Michael and Megan grew up with a foot in each of the cultures, and we always spoke English at home. So they always they grew up bilingual, and
Well, that is lovely, and that's the gift. That's great when children young can learn. Sorry, I'll mention my godson again. And his little 5-year-old brother, completely fluent in 3 languages actually. So
Wow.
yeah, powerful. And maybe just tell us what part of Germany you're in as well.
We're in a city called Chemnitz, which was formerly known in GDR times, communist times, as Karl-Marx-Stadt. But after the wall came down, it was then reverted back to its original name, Chemnitz. It's a city of with a population of about 250,000, and it's between Leipzig and Dresden in East Germany.
Super. And can you? Oh, sorry, Jen.
No, it's about 50 kilometers from the border to the Czech Republic. It's right over on the east.
Super. And just on that, the former East and West Germany, and the legacy of that over 30 years since reunification, and then maybe the state of the churches and within the societies the area that you're in. Do you want to reflect on the setting that you're in culturally and also in terms of what the church this place is?
Yeah, just one thing that came to mind there. When we came at the beginning, that was over 20 years ago now. The church wanted to move out into their community, to talk about their faith. They weren't able to do that in communist times. Everything was new for them, and they really didn't know how to do it. They'd never heard of things like sorry, I'm thinking in German, parent and toddler groups or work within the community. So yeah, they were looking for new ideas and help there.
Yeah, it was that's what the circuit steward said to me when I first arrived. He said, look, you can help us do church in a different way because you're coming in with a clean slate and no history here. So it was kind of culture shock both ways. It was culture shock for us. We had come from Northern Ireland, Irish Methodism, where the whole background is the whole country is kind of like Christian in ethos. And then we're coming into a part of the world where 40 years of communist atheistic government and state and propaganda against the church. It was a culture shock, and it wasn't just people that were disinterested about the Christian faith. There were a lot of people back then when we first came here who were really anti-church and really, hostile almost. And that was new to us. It's changed over the 20 years that we've been here. The younger generations, obviously are more open to spirituality or even the church, but not so much the institution. More about spirituality and so on. But yeah, it was difficult at the start. It was like 78% atheist population here in this part of the world. It's a completely different context, and you can't take anything for granted. That they know what Christmas is or what we celebrate at Easter. It's just that sort of background, basic Christian knowledge is not there.
Yeah. I mean, well, maybe you're touching on, and maybe as somebody who knows both the north and the south in Ireland, there are differences. There are similarities, of course, but there are differences, and we notice, this movement, certainly in the south, the movement away from the church, and maybe some things that people within the general population might have taken for granted, but that is of a whole different scale that you're talking about there. But maybe because of that, it's something that we certainly want to learn from because of that.
I mean, Stephen, one of the things was that people who did go to church during the communist days, they were obviously deeply committed Christians. So there was less of a kind of nominal Christianity, sort of on paper a Christian. It was, if you were a Christian in those days, you were disadvantaged. Your kids couldn't go to grammar school. They couldn't go to university. You couldn't get any job with any kind of leadership position if you didn't pledge your allegiance to the communist atheistic state.
Yeah.
Instead of doing confirmation classes, you had to go to the communist equivalent.
Wow.
And a lot of Christians didn't do that. And because of that, they were disadvantaged. But then that led to kind of like in some ways, a healthier church that
Right.
focused and really dedicated. Obviously it costs you, and so you're going to be dedicated there, and you're going to have to depend on God and on your brothers and sisters in the faith, to get through this together. So that was kind of like a really nice part of it, and not nice living in that state, but a good witness for the Christians back then.
Yeah, powerful. Well, do you want to maybe tell us something about, has your position just developed over the years? So initially, how you found thinking through what ministry was like in your first 10 years or whatever, any reflections on what ministry was like for you?
I mean, for Jill, her main focus when we first went there, and she can say this herself, what was your main focus? Was the family,
Yeah.
I think in the year before we moved, we actually arrived in Chemnitz. We had 4 house moves.
Wow.
So it was, I wanted to have sort of stability for the family, and also pick up on the language a little bit more. So the first year and a half, I concentrated on family life, and then I'd got to know the congregation and felt I knew then where I wanted to sort of have my main areas of work. So I headed up the children's work and also the
young
women's groups, and a little bit of everything.
Yeah, typical traditional sort of Methodist minister's wife. But it was this was a joint decision by us that Michael and Megan were 5 and 3 when we went there, and it was so important for us after all the the upheavals and changes and so on, that we had a stable family life. And we haven't always got the balance right, but we do feel quite strongly, because yourself, Stephen, you can work 24/7, if you aren't disciplined enough to take time off and get distracted in healthy ways. So
we like get distracted easily, actually. So.
But like any sensible Methodist minister going into a new work, you'll just sort of look and listen for the first while, and then you'll try and gather key leaders around you and try and share a common vision. And my whole emphasis there was, especially with the circuit steward that came to me and said, help us be a blessing to our neighborhoods, because we weren't able to do that in communist times. So that's how we started. We started focusing not just inwardly. We tried to build up the congregation inwardly, but we also said, okay, look, outside the church here, these are our neighbors. How can we be salt and light to them? And that took on various forms. And then I flew under the radar, and then finally the bishop saw what was happening, and he called me to become director of evangelism for the United Methodist Church in Germany, which then ended up us leaving that congregation and taking on a new role, which was like Germany-wide. That was about 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
Okay. Well, do you want to tell us a bit about that role and your observations and your work?
So the tent mission, I don't know what comes to mind when you hear tent mission, but it's a part of the role of director of evangelism. And the tent mission is a part of church planting, congregational development, evangelism, fresh expressions of church. And with the tent mission, Jill was involved in we have like we call it in German, AMK Mobil. It's like a mobile cafe. and it's basically about a hospitality ministry.
Yeah, we had it in Ireland as well. The big yellow bus.
The big yellow bus. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and they have a lot of resources there. They have bouncy castles and
climbing walls.
Yeah, they have a lot of things, and they're on offer to any church that wants to do a neighborhood project or something within their congregations.
We'll post a few pictures and maybe a link or something with this video and with her posts.
Yeah, but Jill would sometimes go around on these mission trips with all these resources, the mobile cafe or the various games and resources that we have, and they're not, they're basically just bridge builders. They're a way of blessing your community, and then the community neighborhood comes along and takes part in these fun days, and then they come into conversation on who are you, who's running this, and it's a way of just blessing the community, starting
contact with people.
Building relationships. So, and my role is more along the lines of like delivering content, workshops, seminars, evangelistic weeks, mission outreach weeks, training leaders and congregations how to reclaim evangelism, because a lot of folks hear the word evangelism and they're afraid of it, or they think, oh no, I can't do that. Or some people even have a very negative attitude towards evangelism because they've maybe had a negative experience of someone, abusing evangelism and putting them under pressure and trying to scare the hell out of them, so to speak.
I think that's an interesting point, because and possibly within the Methodist Church or within the South, we maybe glance at the North a bit, and maybe glance across the Atlantic too, at what we might term evangelical Christianity, and there may be certain things we think, oh, well, that's just not what we're about or what we're at. So reclaiming what the essence of evangelism is and the need to get out and share the good news is.
Yeah, I mean, that is the crux, that is the core of my ministry, and it's one of the biggest challenges as I travel around all United Methodist churches here in Germany, the congregations. Evangelism comes from the Greek word evangel, which is literally gospel, good news, translated as good news. And unfortunately, for some reason, evangelism has been almost hijacked and has taken on this flavor, like the televangelists in America, or those evangelists that put people under pressure. It's almost like bad news. And I'm trying to help people understand, evangelism is about the evangel, about the gospel. And the gospel is there's a God out there who created you, in whose image you're made, wonderfully and beautifully made, no matter what you look like and who you are, beautifully and wonderfully made. And this God reaches out his hand to you and says, let's do life together. Yeah. And that to me is evangelism, and that's the story and the narrative that we have to share with the world. Yeah. And unfortunately, most churches in Ireland and in Germany, we end up getting so caught up in ourselves that we lose focus in telling that story to ourselves, but also in telling it to our neighbours in word and deed.
Yeah, powerful.
You got me preaching now, so.
Listen, I was very glad. I think that is just powerful what you've said. It's just hitting the mark. Yeah, and it's encouraging, and I think because certainly in North Tipperary Methodist Circuit, we are in an area where we've seen, our churches have seen far bigger days in terms of numbers on our circuits and the sustainability of our circuits. So there are challenges, and yet I'm positive we have a calling to share the good news, and we have a mission in today's Ireland. So I think you're coming with encouragement, but anyway, it's not for me about talking here. anyway, maybe we'll just continue on. I don't know if there's any other reflections you have about that role within Germany, but you now have a broader role with the British Methodist Church for Europe. Do you want to?
Yeah, maybe just add one thing to the last question.
Yeah.
That maybe Jill can share about that. We've started a fresh expression of church called Inspire. We started it here.
Yes, sorry, yes, don't rush that. I definitely want to.
And that's a part of the German work that both of us are involved in. Jill probably more so than me.
Yeah, it's a major part of my work, and it's a community project here, a social project as well, where we work with the community. But really, it's just us, 8 Christians from all different denominations, from all age groups, just sharing our lives with our neighborhood and trying to build community in our neighborhood. It was a very rundown part of town. It's been slowly rejuvenated from the city, but also from the people who live here. And we have different events during the week, but we all work sort of voluntary. So, it can't be 24/7. For example, we have like a bring and share brunch once a month where people just bring something to eat. We put it on the table and sit around and chat for maybe 3-4 hours, and families come, elderly people come, and it's just a way of getting to know your neighbors here in our community and building community together. And things like that have been working really well, but obviously we can't do that at the moment. It's difficult
due to COVID. Yeah. I mean, it's in the context that we're in. There's still a lot of suspicion towards church and Christianity and so on. And so the challenge we faced there was going in as Christians, and we didn't want to be a little Christian subculture where we're doing our thing and that's where the Christians go to, and then in the other cafes and so on, that's where the normal people go to. And we've been able to, thank God, we've been able to do that. We're working with, we like to phrase it as people of good faith working with people of goodwill. So we're working with atheists and people of other religions to actually bless that neighborhood, but we're overtly Christian. I mean, they know we're Christians, and we have a ministry of reconciliation there on the Brule as well. People will come to us with problems. They'll come to ask us to be mediators in disputes on the Brule, and so we've got a witness there that is truly Christian, overtly Christian. But there's still times when I think, is it now time to offer an alpha course? Is it now time to, start doing worship services? And we tried things like that. But as soon as we do that, what happens is people come from other parts of the city, Christians come from other parts of the city to these Christian events, and the neighbors on the Brule stay away. And what we have found is that we can have meaningful Christian witness and conversation through table fellowship. So most of the events where we are talking to our neighbors is through meals and table fellowship.
And it happens in a natural way.
And we're sharing our lives with people, and because our faith is a part of our lives, we also share our faith with them, but we don't see our neighbors and our friends as mission objects. They are just our neighbors and our friends. We're doing life with them, and they're doing life with us, and we're changing the face of the neighborhood.
Powerful. Yeah, that's wonderful. And as I say, there are other things out there of your work, so I think I'll try and get whatever links to things we can just available for people to see. Great. And do you want to mention your wider European responsibility? Or maybe
So since 2 years now, I have reduced the work in the German United Methodist Church. We're both mission partners. Part of my mission partner work is working for the United Methodist Church in Germany as Director of Evangelism. The other 50% of my work as a mission partner is as Europe Partnership Coordinator for the Methodist Church in Britain, which basically means I'm helping the Methodist Church in Britain with its relationships with all other Methodist and Wesleyan and Uniting churches in Europe, and just, keeping contacts there, especially post-Brexit, trying to maintain the relationships, extend and build on the relationships,
Right.
partnerships and twinning projects and
Right.
mission partners in both directions and so on.
Well, I suppose ordinarily, the United Methodist Church in Germany is part of the worldwide United Methodist Church that I guess has a lot of its bulk in the United States. So there is a slightly, it's not that the geography has, there has been just different relationships maybe over the decades between Methodist churches.
There are independent Methodist churches. There are mainly in Europe United Methodist churches, but there's the Italian Methodist Church, the Portuguese Methodist Church, which are independent churches. Then there are other Wesleyan churches and Nazarene and so on. But mainly here in continental Europe, it's the UMC.
Okay. And sorry, you just briefly mentioned COVID. So I mean, when was the last time you were in Ireland?
Last February.
Last February,
okay.
Down in your corner of the woods, down your neck of the woods.
Yeah. Well, and sorry, I shouldn't have just asked that question. I should have acknowledged that you were here, Barry. So just to say that Barry was here with a play that was touring, and people will know that we advertised that a year ago in Mount Mellick, and Barry and Chris and Ross from Play It By Ear stayed in the manse here, and
played some great snooker.
I'll tell you, that pool table has come in so handy during lockdown.
I'm sure.
And you were in Barsacan Community College doing the play, and it was so well received at that time. Anyway, tell us about that play and why it started.
Basically, 2015, whenever Angela Merkel, Germany Chancellor, opened the borders to receive all these refugees that were freezing on the borders of Europe. Over 1 million refugees came into Germany within a year, and long story short, Inspire got involved, helping refugees, new people coming into our communities and into our neighborhood, helping them settle in and learn German and so on. And I just basically started thinking, what could we Christians do, not only just this practical ways, but is there any way that we can maybe make an input? And I'd worked with Chris and Ross from Play It By Ear drama company. I'd worked with them before, and I thought it'd be great if we could write a play that's basically just about welcoming the stranger, but also acknowledging some of the tensions that brings with it, that it's not just all rosy and easy and simplistic. Yeah. And so we wrote this play together. No Man is an Irish Island, and it's about an imaginary little Irish island off the coast of Ireland that's been asked to take its contingent of refugees, and how the islanders react to that. And but the story is all about welcoming the stranger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it didn't start off as an Irish island. You had the play touring all around Germany and Denmark.
Yeah. We toured Germany, we toured Denmark, but we always wanted to do it in Ireland. So we were able to go down to your neck of the woods and then up to Belfast as well, and that same week. And then a couple of weeks after that, COVID hit, and and we've been in lockdown since, or we've been restricted in our travels since.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you. I always feel I love the emphasis of the World Mission Partnership, as it has been called maybe for the last 5 years. Here, that it's not about Irish people, Methodists, going to other places and telling other people what to do and how to do it. It is a partnership. It is a learning together, and we need to learn from all around the world and all sorts of other cultures, and that gives us insights and encouragement for our own challenges and our own living out here. Any other reflections just as we close on even just your own experience there, and maybe you're in close, you see and know the Irish Methodist Church of today as well as when you used to live here. So any of the challenges that you're aware of, that a word of encouragement from your own experience might
you want to say something about our new venture?
Okay. Well, obviously in the past year we haven't been able to travel, so we weren't able to go back to Ireland or the UK and report on what we're doing or visit any congregations or anything. So we decided that we would do some videos ourselves and just share a little bit about our work, about our lives, just what we're up to here,
our ministry here.
Yeah. So we've done, I don't know, 2 videos now.
Yeah.
On the YouTube channel. Irish Pilgrims is the name of the channel, and we're hoping to maybe once a month have a video to that all our friends, family, and also churches can keep up with what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically as Jill says, an opportunity to report back to UK and Ireland about our work and our lives here. But we also have a wider audience in mind. So we're intentionally doing these videos not just for a church audience. We actually want to try and make these videos not too churchy, so that we can actually speak to and maybe reach other people that would just be interested in following Irish people, an Irish couple living in Germany with this particular slant on life and with this particular set of values. And so we share a little bit about our Inspire work and our church work, but we're also going to share other stuff. You know, the next video will be a reveal of something that we've bought and that we're planning to use for mission. So, super. Irish Pilgrims.
Yeah. Oh well, we'll have a link to it all in our on here on.
Spread the word.
YouTube. Subscribe.
I should actually be doing something like this, you know. Right here's the link here, right? Okay.
We're not that far yet.
It's all new territory for us, like, but it's a laugh. We're enjoying ourselves.
Good. Well, listen, thank you so much. I think as we engage with just learning about the church and the realities and the challenges and the blessings of sharing the good news in other places, we gain so much, and we for our own encouragement.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for asking us to share today. Thank you for being our partners in mission, you folks back on the circuit there. It means so much to us to know that there are people in the sending church back home, in our home church in Ireland, that are interested and maybe just offer up a wee prayer for us, because we're really dependent on your prayers. So thanks for all your interest and your love.
And thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you, Barry and Gillian.
Okay.
God bless.
God bless. Bye.